They say love is what everyone longs for, the one thing that heals, that makes life worth living. But for the avoidant, love doesn't feel like safety. It feels like pressure, expectation, a threat to their carefully built walls. So when faced with the choice, love or loneliness, they choose loneliness, not because they don't feel, not because they don't want, but because the risk of being close feels heavier than the emptiness of being alone. And in this choice lies their greatest paradox. The very thing they need most is the very thing they push away. This is the hidden truth behind the avoidance loneliness, why they choose it, and what it secretly costs them. The hidden safety of loneliness. On the outside, it looks simple. They withdraw. They shut the door. They say they need space. But inside, loneliness isn't just space. It's safety. It's control. It's the one place no one can reach in and hurt them. To someone who has never lived in that mindset, it seems confusing. Why would anyone prefer silence to connection? Why would anyone want the ache of being alone instead of the warmth of being loved? The answer lies in the nervous system, in old wounds, in survival strategies that were carved, not by choice, but by necessity. For the avoidant, love has never been simple. When they were young, love was inconsistent. It came with strings. It came with judgment. Sometimes it didn't come at all. So they learned something quietly, almost without knowing it. Love cannot be trusted. Love can vanish. Love can suffocate. But loneliness? Loneliness was predictable. It never demanded. It never disappointed. It simply was. And so loneliness became their companion. Not a joyful one, not a fulfilling one, but a safe one. Think about the feeling of coming home to a quiet apartment. The stillness wraps around you. No one is waiting. No one is asking. No one is watching. To most, that emptiness might sting. To an avoidant, it can feel like a relief. Because in that emptiness, there is no risk, no hidden explosion waiting to go off, no sudden rejection waiting to cut deep. Loneliness is a fortress. The walls are high, the doors locked, the moat filled, and inside, the avoidant breathes, without fear of being swallowed whole. But here's the paradox. That same fortress that keeps them safe also keeps them starved. Safe from hurt, but starved of closeness. Safe from rejection, but starved of belonging. Safe from chaos, but starved of being truly known. The avoidant doesn't always see this clearly. In their mind, safety is the prize. Safety is worth the cost. But deep in their body, a different story brews. Because even in loneliness, their nervous system remembers that humans are wired for connection. Here's the quiet truth most never notice. The avoidant feels loneliness too. Sometimes late at night. Sometimes when they see others laughing. Sometimes when they notice the empty space beside them. But instead of reaching out, they swallow it. They rationalize it. They say, "I'm fine alone. I don't need anyone. Love is too complicated." And in those words, they numb the ache. Because to them, loneliness hurts less than hope. Think of loneliness like a desert. It is dry, empty, but at least you know what to expect. Love, on the other hand, feels like a mirage, something glittering in the distance. You reach for it, and it slips away. You drink from it, and it burns your throat. And so the avoidant chooses the desert. Because even if it's barren, at least it won't trick them. This hidden safety of loneliness is not about joy. It's about control. When you are alone, you don't have to manage another person's moods. You don't have to fear their withdrawal. You don't have to be seen in your rawest self. Aloneness gives them a sense of power. It is theirs. No one can take it away. Love, on the other hand, always comes with risk. The risk of being misunderstood. the risk of being abandoned, the risk of losing yourself. To the avoidant, that risk is unbearable. So they choose loneliness over and over, even when a part of them longs for more. What makes this choice so heartbreaking is that many avoidants don't even know they are making it. It's automatic. It's wired into their nervous system. The moment closeness stirs something in them, their instinct is to retreat, to find the comfort of space, to breathe in the air of solitude. That feels safer than intimacy. It isn't that they don't care. It isn't that they don't love. It's that love feels like stepping into fire, and loneliness feels like stepping into shade. Imagine holding a candle. Its flame is warm. It can light the dark, but get too close, and it burns. That's how the avoidant sees love. A beautiful thing, but dangerous if touched too deeply. Loneliness, however, is the darkness around the candle. Cold, still, but safe. And so they stay in the shadows, watching the flame from afar, convincing themselves that it is better this way. This is why the avoidant's loneliness is not an accident. It is not just the absence of love. It is a deliberate choice, a survival strategy, a learned belief that distance equals safety. And unless this belief is touched, challenged, and gently undone, they will keep choosing it, even if it costs them the very thing they secretly desire. How love feels like danger to them. To most people, love is safety, a warm place to rest, a steady hand to hold, a shelter in the storm. But for the avoidant, love does not feel safe. It feels sharp, heavy, unpredictable. Love is not a soft landing. It is a cliff edge. It is standing too close to a fire and waiting for the burn. This isn't because they don't feel love. They do, sometimes more deeply than they admit, sometimes more fiercely than anyone realizes. The danger isn't in the feeling itself. It's in what comes with it. The closeness, the exposure, the possibility of losing themselves. For someone with an avoidant attachment pattern, closeness equals risk. Intimacy equals vulnerability. And vulnerability has never been safe. When they were children, their first lessons in love were tangled. Maybe love came with conditions. Maybe love was inconsistent. Maybe love was absent altogether. So their nervous system learned. To need is to be disappointed. To reach is to be rejected. To rely is to be abandoned. And that wiring never really went away. This is why love feels like danger. Because to the avoidant, love has always been a double-edged sword. Yes, it offers warmth, but with it comes the shadow of loss. Yes, it promises closeness, but with it comes the threat of being controlled. Yes, it whispers safety, but with it comes the memory of betrayal. So their body reacts before their mind even has the chance. Their heart beats faster. Their chest tightens. Their impulse screams, step back, retreat, hide. Imagine this. Someone wraps their arms around you in affection. To most, it's comfort. To the avoidant, it can feel like being trapped. The body stiffens. The breath shortens. The nervous system shouts, too much, too close. It isn't that they don't want the hug. It's that their body associates closeness with danger, and danger must be avoided. This is why avoidants often send mixed signals. They may lean in, they may reach out, they may even fall deeply in love. But the moment that love asks something of them, the moment it requires vulnerability, dependence, or openness, their system recoils. Not because the other person did something wrong, but because love itself feels like stepping into quicksand. To the avoidant, love feels heavy. Even the smallest gestures of care can feel like weight pressing down. A partner says, "I miss you." To them, it sounds like, "You're suffocating me." A partner says, "I want to be closer." To them, it feels like you're trying to control me. A partner says, I love you. And instead of warmth, they feel pressure, expectation, fear that they cannot live up to it. So they retreat, not because the love isn't real, but because the love feels dangerous. It's important to understand this. The avoidant is not rejecting love itself. They are rejecting the danger that comes with it. When you love them, they feel seen. But being seen also means being exposed. When you depend on them, they feel valued. But dependence also means the risk of failure. When you reach for them, they feel wanted. But reaching also reminds them of their own childhood reach. That went unanswered. So the past comes rushing back, and the present moment feels unsafe. Picture someone who was burned by fire as a child. Even years later, when they see a flame, their body tenses. They remember the pain. They step back. Love is that fire. It can warm. It can heal. But to the avoidant, it is also the memory of the burn. And so they pull away, not from you, but from the danger their body still feels. For someone with an avoidant attachment pattern, closeness equals risk. Intimacy equals vulnerability. And vulnerability has never been safe. When they were children, their first lessons in love were tangled. Maybe love came with conditions. Maybe love was inconsistent. Maybe love was absent altogether. So their nervous system learned. To need is to be disappointed. To reach is to be rejected. To rely is to be abandoned. And that wiring never really went away. This is why love feels like danger. Because to the avoidant, love has always been a double-edged sword. Yes, it offers warmth, but with it comes the shadow of loss. Yes, it promises closeness, but with it comes the threat of being controlled. Yes, it whispers safety, but with it comes the memory of betrayal. So their body reacts before their mind even has the chance. Their heart beats faster. Their chest tightens. Their impulse screams, step back, retreat, hide. Imagine this. Someone wraps their arms around you in affection. To most, it's comfort. To the avoidant, it can feel like being trapped. The body stiffens. The breath shortens. The nervous system shouts, too much, too close. It isn't that they don't want the hug. It's that their body associates closeness with danger. And danger must be avoided. This is why avoidants often send mixed signals. They may lean in. They may reach out. They may even fall deeply in love. But the moment that love asks something of them, the moment it requires vulnerability, dependence, or openness, their system recoils. Not because the other person did something wrong, but because love itself feels like stepping into quicksand. To the avoidant, love feels heavy. Even the smallest gestures of care can feel like weight pressing down. A partner says, I miss you. To them, it sounds like, you're suffocating me. A partner says, I want to be closer. To them, it feels like, you're trying to control me. A partner says, I love you. And instead of warmth, they feel pressure, expectation, fear that they cannot live up to it. So they retreat, not because the love isn't real, but because the love feels dangerous. It's important to understand this. The avoidant is not rejecting love itself. They are rejecting the danger that comes with it. When you love them, they feel seen. But being seen also means being exposed. When you depend on them, they feel valued. But dependence also means the risk of failure. When you reach for them, they feel wanted. But reaching also reminds them of their own childhood reach. That went unanswered. So the past comes rushing back, and the present moment feels unsafe. Picture someone who was burned by fire as a child. Even years later, when they see a flame, their body tenses. They remember the pain. They step back. Love is that fire. It can warm. It can heal. But to the avoidant, it is also the memory of the burn. And so they pull away, not from you, but from the danger their body still feels. This is why relationships with avoidance often feel confusing. They show affection, but then disappear. They express care, but then shut down. They open up, then suddenly close off. It looks like rejection. It looks like indifference. But in reality, it is self-protection. Because to them, love is not steady ground. It is shaky earth. It can collapse at any moment. And so they step carefully, or they refuse to step at all. Even joy feels dangerous. Yes, joy, because joy means hope, and hope means something to lose. For the avoidant, even happiness can feel risky, because the higher they climb in love, the further there is to fall. So instead of embracing it, they mute it. They hold it at arm's length. They pretend they don't need it, all to avoid the crash they are certain is coming. This is what many people misunderstand. The avoidant is not cold. They are cautious, not unfeeling, but overwhelmed. Love is danger, because love is exposure. And exposure is the one thing their body was trained to survive by avoiding. So when you love them, remember this. Behind their distance is not a lack of care, but a nervous system in overdrive. A heart that wants to open, but fears the cost. And that cost, the price of choosing distance over love, is what slowly erodes their life. Because while love feels dangerous, the absence of love carries dangers of its own. The cost of choosing loneliness. On the surface, loneliness looks easier, cleaner, safer. No demands, no pressure, no risk of rejection. Loneliness feels like freedom, like no one can touch you, no one can hurt you, no one can pull you into the chaos of closeness. And for the avoidant, this feels like control. It feels like safety. It feels like peace. But there's a hidden cost, a cost that grows silently, a cost that eats away at them slowly. When they choose loneliness over love, they may escape the weight of intimacy, but they also escape the warmth, the connection, the belonging. They silence the fear of being hurt, but they also silence the possibility of being healed. Because love is not just pressure. Love is also oxygen. And when they cut themselves off from it, they start to suffocate without even realizing. The first cost is emotional. Loneliness becomes a dull ache. Not sharp, not loud, but constant. It's the ache of unshared moments. The ache of achievements with no one to witness them. The ache of pain with no one to soothe it. The avoidant tells themselves they don't need it. They convince themselves they're fine. They repeat the mantra, "I'm better alone." And sometimes they believe it. But deep down, their body knows better. Their nervous system still craves the co-regulation that only comes from human closeness. Their heart still longs for the rhythm of another. And that longing doesn't disappear. It simply hides, waiting, pressing, burning quietly in the background. The second cost is relational. Because when avoidants choose loneliness, they also choose misunderstanding. Friends think they don't care. Partners think they're cold. Family thinks they're detached. But it isn't indifference. It's defense. It's armor. Still, the result is the same. People pull away. Connections fade. Opportunities for intimacy vanish. The avoidant tells themselves, "See, I knew it." People leave. But what they don't realize is that they left first. Not physically, but emotionally. And so they create the very outcome they feared. The third cost is physical. Loneliness isn't just emotional. It takes a toll on the body. Research shows that chronic loneliness has the same impact on health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It raises cortisol, weakens immunity, accelerates aging. The body keeps score. And when the avoidant cuts themselves off from closeness, their body suffers in silence. They may not see the connection. They may think they're fine, but the stress of self-protection is a weight their body never puts down. The fourth cost is spiritual, because at its core, human beings are wired for connection. We are not designed to live untouched, unseen, unknown. When avoidants choose loneliness, they starve a part of their soul, the part that longs to merge, to rest, to know another and be known in return. They build walls, but behind those walls is emptiness, and no amount of independence can fill it. The tragedy is this: the avoidant doesn't always see the cost until it's too late. They spend years guarding their heart, years building their fortress, years convincing themselves that loneliness is strength. But then one day, they look around and realize the walls are not protecting them. The walls are imprisoning them. They have kept out the danger, yes, but they have also kept out the joy. And the irony? Even loneliness isn't safe, because loneliness carries its own kind of pain, the kind that creeps in at night, the kind that whispers in silence, the kind that makes the heart heavy, even when everything looks fine on the outside. This pain does not explode. It erodes. It chips away slowly, until the avoidant realizes they have lost something they never let themselves fully hold. Imagine a life lived behind glass. You can see others laughing. You can see others holding hands. You can see others building love. You are close enough to watch, but too far to touch. That is the cost of loneliness: being present, but never fully alive. And yet, the avoidant still chooses it, because to them, the ache of loneliness feels safer than the terror of vulnerability. The quiet pain feels safer than the unpredictable pain of intimacy. But safe does not mean alive. Safe does not mean fulfilled. Safe does not mean free. This is the paradox. They trade short-term comfort for long-term emptiness. They escape love's risks, only to fall into loneliness's trap. It is survival, yes, but survival at the expense of living. And so the question remains: what happens to the avoidant when they spend years, even decades, choosing loneliness over love? The answer is written not only in their relationships, but in their body, their mind, their soul. The cost accumulates, and sooner or later, they must face it, the hidden longing beneath their distance. Avoidants look like they don't need anyone, like they are complete on their own, like love is optional, like closeness is a burden. They build the image well, self-sufficient, independent, unmoved. But this is only the surface, a carefully maintained mask, a survival strategy dressed as strength. Because underneath that distance, beneath the cold exterior, beneath the silence and withdrawal, is a longing so deep, it terrifies them. This is the truth most people don't see. The avoidant does not lack the need for love. They lack the safety to allow it. They are not indifferent to connection. They are starving for it, but starving in secret. Every avoidant carries a hidden ache, an ache for someone to stay, an ache for someone to hold them without demanding words, an ache for a love so steady it feels unshakable. They won't admit it. They won't even admit it to themselves. But their nervous system tells the story. Because when they are touched in just the right way, when someone offers care without pressure, when someone looks at them with soft eyes instead of expectations, you can see the longing flicker. It's there. It's always there. It's just buried. Why do they bury it? Because longing feels dangerous. It makes them vulnerable. It makes them dependent. It makes them risk rejection. And for someone whose earliest experiences taught them that closeness equals pain, longing feels like betrayal. So they repress it, push it down, lock it away. They tell themselves, I don't need this. They tell others, I'm fine on my own. But the need doesn't vanish. It waits. It waits in the silence. The hidden longing of the avoidant shows itself in strange ways. They may daydream about love, but dismiss it as fantasy. They may envy intimacy, but roll their eyes at it in real life. They may watch a movie scene of connection and feel something ache inside, only to shut it down immediately. This is their paradox. They want what they fear. They crave what they avoid. They are hungry for the very thing they've taught themselves to reject. At night, when the world is quiet, the longing whispers louder. They might replay old conversations. Think about the person they pushed away. Scroll through old photos, wondering what it would feel like to let someone stay. And then, the armor goes back up. The longing is silenced again. They wake the next morning and return to their script. I'm fine. I don't need anyone. But the body remembers. The heart remembers. And the ache never fully dies. Hidden longing also leaks through in relationships. The avoidant may send mixed signals, pulling you close one day, pushing you away the next. Why? Because their longing and fear are constantly at war. Their hidden desire for connection makes them reach out, but the terror of closeness makes them retreat to the outside. This looks confusing, hot and cold, loving and distant, but inside, it feels like survival, like their heart is running toward water and away from fire at the same time. Some avoidants express their hidden longing through obsession. They may hold on to someone in silence, keep tabs from a distance, stay emotionally invested long after they've withdrawn physically. It's their way of staying close, without admitting they want closeness. A secret tether, a quiet connection that doesn't demand vulnerability. Others express it through work, through art, through music, through quiet acts of care that they pretend mean nothing. The longing has to go somewhere. If it can't be expressed directly, it seeps out sideways, into creativity, into achievement, into the unspoken. But the tragedy is this: the longing never gets fully met, because to be met, it must be revealed, it must be shared, it must be trusted, and that is what the avoidant fears most. So they circle endlessly, wanting love, fearing love, craving closeness, running from closeness, living in the tension of a need they cannot fully admit. The hidden longing beneath their distance also shows up in their bodies. An avoidant may appear calm, but their body carries subtle signs of deprivation. The way their chest tightens when someone leans in too close, the way they exhale deeply when they're finally alone, the way they sometimes unconsciously move toward warmth before catching themselves and stepping back. Their body betrays them, because the body wants what the mind denies. And here lies the truth. Avoidants are not loveless. They are love-hungry. They are not cold. They are cautious. They are not immune to connection. They are terrified of it. Beneath their silence, beneath their withdrawal, beneath their detachment, lives a heart that longs deeply, a heart that aches, a heart that waits. This longing is the key, because it means that avoidants are not hopeless. Their need for love has not disappeared. It has only been hidden. And what is hidden can still be found. But to find it, they must confront their fear. They must risk the very thing they've spent their life avoiding. Until then, they will continue to live this paradox, choosing loneliness, but carrying a longing that never lets them rest. Breaking the cycle, what it takes for an avoidant to choose love over loneliness. An avoidant's life is a loop. Closeness feels like danger. Loneliness feels like safety. But loneliness also feels like emptiness. So they repeat the cycle, pulling away from love, falling back into isolation, convincing themselves they prefer it that way. But the truth is, deep down, they don't. Deep down, they ache for more. The question is, what does it take to break the cycle? What does it take for an avoidant to finally choose love over loneliness? The first step is awareness. Most avoidants don't even realize how automatic their defenses are. They think withdrawing is a choice. They think detachment is personality. They think independence is freedom. But these are not choices. They are reflexes. Reflexes shaped by pain. Reflexes that run the show without their permission. Awareness means seeing the pattern, recognizing the push-pull, noticing the fear that rises when someone gets close, naming it for what it is, a nervous system alarm, not an objective truth. Without awareness, change is impossible, because what you cannot see will always control you. The second step is safety. Avoidants don't choose loneliness because they hate love. They choose it because love feels unsafe. So the path back to love is not forcing closeness. It's building safety. Slowly, gently, patiently. Safety comes from experiences that prove their fear wrong. Moments where closeness doesn't lead to criticism. Moments where care doesn't demand repayment. Moments where vulnerability isn't punished. Each of these moments plants a seed of safety, and over time, those seeds can grow into trust. The third step is permission. Avoidants were often shamed for having needs. They were told directly or indirectly that needing love was weakness, that depending on someone was pathetic, that showing feelings was too much. So they buried their needs, pretended not to have them, tried to survive on scraps of connection. To break the cycle, they must give themselves permission to want what they've always wanted, to admit the longing, to say, yes, I do need love. Yes, I do want closeness. This feels radical, even dangerous, but it's the doorway, because without permission, the longing will stay hidden in the shadows, never allowed to live in the light. The fourth step is patience. Avoidants cannot unlearn decades of defense overnight. They cannot simply flip a switch and trust love. Healing happens in layers. One step closer, one retreat back, another step forward. It looks messy. It looks inconsistent, but it is progress. Patience means allowing the process, not expecting perfection, not demanding instant intimacy, but celebrating the small moments where the avoidant chooses connection over escape. The fifth step is courage, because no matter how much safety, no matter how much patience, at some point, the avoidant must leap. They must risk the very thing they've spent their whole life avoiding, opening up, letting someone in, allowing love to touch the places they've kept sealed off. This is terrifying. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, but it is the only way through. Avoidants must learn that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving with fear, choosing love, even when the body screams to run. And what happens when they do? The cycle begins to crack. Loneliness no longer feels like home. Love no longer feels like a trap. Something shifts. Something softens. For the first time, the avoidant feels what they've been running from. The warmth of connection without pressure. The beauty of closeness without control. They realize that love doesn't have to suffocate. That care doesn't have to weigh them down. That connection doesn't have to strip them of freedom. Instead, love becomes what it always was meant to be: a source of strength, a place of rest, a home for the heart. But let's be clear, breaking the cycle costs something. It costs the comfort of old defenses. It costs the illusion of independence. It costs the safety of loneliness. And yet, what it gives in return is far greater, Because loneliness may protect the avoidant, but it also starves them. It keeps them alive, but never nourished. Love, when chosen with courage, offers what loneliness never can: healing, belonging, the experience of being truly seen. There's also a cost to not breaking the cycle. If the avoidant never risks love, they carry the ache of longing forever. They grow older, but the hunger inside stays the same. They may build a successful life. They may master independence. They may surround themselves with noise and distraction. But late at night, when silence returns, the ache whispers again. You wanted more. You always wanted more. This is the quiet tragedy of avoidant attachment. Not that they don't feel love, but that they feel it too much to bear. So they push it away and lose it in the process. But here is the hope. The cycle can be broken. The nervous system can learn safety. The heart can unlearn fear. Love can become a refuge. Instead of a threat, it takes awareness. It takes safety. It takes permission. It takes patience. And it takes courage. But when the avoidant chooses love, truly chooses it, the cost of loneliness fades. And what remains is the connection they were secretly longing for all along. And so, the choice stands before them. Continue the cycle of loneliness, or risk the leap into love. One path feels safer, but emptier. The other path feels terrifying, but alive. Breaking the cycle isn't easy, but it's possible. And when it happens, love finally stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like what it always was: home.